Well, let's see. I'm a vegetarian, but I don't impose that on my friends. We haven't worried. Yeah, we haven't worked.
There you go.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to our May 9th Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors meeting. And Mr. Allen, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Adam. Here. Mr. Lavanino. Here. Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Wolf.
Can't hear her voice. No audio in Santa Barbara.
I'm going to try it again. Supervisor Wolf.
Here.
Okay, great. And Ms. Hartman.
Here. And please stand and join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd, 2017?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Would you call the roll, Mr. Allen?
Mr. Adam.
Aye.
Mr. Lavanino.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Wolf.
Aye.
And Ms. Hartman.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
And do we have a CEO's report, Ms. Miyasato?
I do, Chair Hartman and board members, good morning. Actually, two just quick announcements, and they're actually recognitions, and they both relate to the Public Works Department. So one is just recognizing and congratulating Scott McGalpin, our Public Works Director, who was recently installed as the Vice President of the National Association of County Engineers, as the Western Regional Vice President during its annual conference. This is a big honor for Scott and for us to be recognized in that way. Scott's also done his share to help bring the need for more local infrastructure at the national level. So thank you, Scott, and congratulations. Also, we've mentioned this other project before, but the recognition keeps coming in, and that is that the Public Works San Pedro Las Vegas Creek Improvement Project. It won an award recently from the California Counties Architects and Engineers Association as the Medium County Award and the Special Juries Award for the project. Mr. Fayram has the beautiful award that he can flash for us.
Like the Washington Monument.
The jury felt compelled to issue the special award based on the complexity and overall benefit to the community. So congratulations again, Public Works. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Turning to our administrative agenda, we have 5 honorary resolutions today, A14 to A18. May I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
And again, we need a roll call vote because we're in 2 different places.
Mr. Adam. Aye. Mr. Lavanino. Aye. Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Wolf.
Aye.
And Ms. Hartman.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
And would you read A14 into the record, please, Mr. Allen?
Item A14, this is a resolution sponsored by Supervisor Williams. It's a resolution proclaiming the month of May 2017 as Mental Health Month in Santa Barbara County, and I think Sharon Byrne is here. Is Sharon here? Or did we have anybody from the Mental Health Commission? I think. Okay, okay, great. Then anybody come on up. And
It's called a battlefield.
And I'll go ahead, I'll read the resolution into the record. Whereas, the U.S. Surgeon General has found that 1 in every 5 Americans experiences a mental disorder in any given year, and half of all Americans at some time in their lives, and that mental illnesses are far more common than cancer, diabetes, heart disease, or arthritis. These are real treatable diseases that can affect anyone regardless of age. And whereas the Santa Barbara County Mental Health Commission supports proactive community collaborations to maximize the mental health of all people, and with effective treatment, individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas the Santa Barbara County Behavioral Health Steering Committee has adopted vision and guiding principles which represent the core characteristics and service principles for the system and are all included in all system planning, activities, and service. And whereas the Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness is deploying change agents at all levels of clinical operations and administration to advance system change. And whereas the Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness is developing commitments from all system partners reflecting the system framework for a culturally competent, accessible, integrated, continuous, and comprehensive system of care in which any door is the right door for those with a combination of substance abuse or mental health issues. Now, therefore, be hereby ordered and resolved that the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the month of May 2017 as Mental Health Month, and calls upon all Santa Barbara County citizens to fight stigma associated with mental illness and reaffirm a commitment to supporting the mental health of all people in Santa Barbara County, passed and adopted today.
So Sharon is not here yet, but we do have two commission members. We'll ask them to come up, but I will tell you that they have been doing some hard work. They've been willing to meet and do all Saturday retreats so that they can get more work done and get to know each other and get to know the material better. So it's a great group of commissioners to work with.
Board, I'm very thankful for this. I'm sorry I'm a little hoarse. I just got a frog somewhere. But I want to thank you all for this award. It means so much to all what we do. With the director and now the acquisition together of the Alcohol and Drug Board with the Mental Health Commission, I think you're going to see some better improvements coming from all areas. It's been time that we should have done this a while back, but we appreciate all your help. We appreciate all the help from every agency in this county. Because without it, we wouldn't be anywhere where we are. And I appreciate the director we have behind us. She's doing an excellent job. We have a former member that worked in the county for over 30-some odd years who gives us another approach to this problem. And it was sat on the Mental Health Commission before it merged for over 10 years. And I think with all this together, I think you're going to see a lot better program coming out of our group together. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything.
Thank you. I just want to thank the board for its past and continued support of the department. It means so much. I guess I say the department. I'm no longer employed. I'm been retired for 2 years now, going on 3. And would like your consideration for the Laura's Law pilot project also. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say thank you to Supervisor Williams for attending the meetings and being part of this group. It's really amazing to have that direct connection with the board and have him be able to share with you kind of what's going on. So we really appreciate that active participation. So thank you.
A15, Mr. Allen.
Chair Hartman and members of the board, item A15 is a resolution sponsored by Supervisor Wolf, and I believe that Supervisor Hartman is going to fill in here in Santa Maria with the presentation. This is recognizing the month of May 2017 as National Foster Care Month in Santa Barbara County, and we have Arminia Solario. Is Arminia here? Great. And then we've got representatives from the department and some others. So I'll go ahead and read this resolution into the record. Whereas every child deserves to belong to a family, and resource families are a critical member of the child welfare team that allow children and youth separated from their homes through no fault of their own to live in nurturing and safe family environments that provide a sense of belonging and lifelong connections. And whereas on any given day in Santa Barbara County, there are over 400 children and youth in foster care who need love, support, and guidance so they can thrive and develop to their best potential. And whereas older youth in foster care need guidance, stability, and love that is essential for a young person to thrive and become a successful adult. And whereas the ongoing efforts of resource families, mentors, advocates, social workers, and volunteers steadfastly help many children and youth face life challenges without feeling alone or isolated. And whereas, thanks to our community's heroes, numerous children and youth who have experienced abuse or neglect will safely reunify with their parents, form lifelong permanent connections with relatives, resource families, and adoptive families, or be supported into independent adulthood. Now, therefore, be it hereby ordered and resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby recognize May 2017 as National Foster Care Month in recognition of the value of resource families in providing the children and youth of our county hope, safety, and the opportunity to heal. Passed and adopted today.
Madam Chair,
All right. Thank you so much, Chair Hartman. And
Madam Chair,
And I think Supervisor Wolf, who sponsored this award, would like to say something first.
thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry that I'm not there with all of you today. I just wanted to reiterate one of the statements that was made in the resolution, that these really are our heroes in our community who are working with these children. And so I just want to congratulate the family that's before you today and all the resource families that are taking care of our 400 plus children on a daily basis, and to our social workers who are helping to move that forward and provide the support that they need. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you so much, Chair Hartman, Supervisor Wolf, and Board. I'm Amy Kruger with the Department of Social Services, Adult and Children's Services. With me are Ms. Herminia Solorio, who we're honoring today, our Foster Parent Recruitment Retention Liaison, Gustavo Prado, and of course our Director, Nielsen. We're recognizing Ms. Solorio this morning because of the dedication she's shown in her life to supporting children. She's provided over 20 years as a daycare provider, a resource parent, and an adoptive mother. She's cared for over 20 children, many with special needs, and she also provides a home for teens, which is a huge need in our community. And because of her willingness to do so, we've been able to keep many children in our community who otherwise might have been placed out of county or in group homes. So we really want to recognize Ms. Solorio for that dedication. And she's also volunteered to mentor other families to help show them the way in caring for the older youth in our community in order to support that effort. Thank you.
This is an honor for me that I never thought about. And I'm very happy, to help the community, especially the kids. As a single mom, I raised my 3 kids since they were little. And I have an adopted son that is here with me, Alejandro, is sitting there. And I'd be so happy to do this for the children, and we need a lot of help, more foster houses, and more help for them too, because sometimes in a shorter time, the large years that I have my kids, like for 2 years, and they went back to the moms, and sometimes the parents are not ready, to take it back. I see some of the kids that, they need more help, as all the and doctors and all psychological and, a lot of help they need, because they came from a lot of houses that they're not, well constitution, and they're very unstable homes. So we need a lot of help for those kids. That's what I see on those, years that I've been as a foster mom. And thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. A16, Mr. Allen.
Chair Hartman, members of the board, item A16 is a resolution sponsored by Supervisor Hartman, and this is a resolution to commemorate the naming of the Cedillo Community Center in Guadalupe and Eva Cedillo. Is Eva here? Yeah. Come on up to the mic, and I'll read the resolution into the record. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Guadalupe Union School District have renamed the Family Service Center to the Cedillo Community Center. This happened on February 2nd, 2017. And whereas Eva Cedillo has volunteered for over 30 years of community service to the elementary, junior high, high school, and other community projects totaling over 10,000 hours. And whereas her volunteering at Mary Buren School, the Migrant Program, the McKenzie Junior High School School Site Council, and Rigetti High School Migrant Program Region 18 as Vice President and President, all provided tremendous support to the education of all who participated in the school projects. And whereas her voice and leadership in support of providing affordable housing, senior services, and advocate for providing bus transportation for Rigetti High School students was extremely important in establishing needed services to Guadalupe residents. And whereas her continued commitment to helping make Guadalupe a better place to live for all residents and is appreciated by all those who have benefited from her unselfish willingness to give back to her community. And whereas her love of the community of Guadalupe is reflected by her continued commitment and dedication to positive growth and community betterment. Now, therefore, let it be hereby ordered and resolved that the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors proclaim that the formerly named Guadalupe Service Center located at 4681 11th Street in Guadalupe is now recognized as the Cedillo Community Center. Passed and adopted today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is award is very, very important for me and for my community. It's a big, big motivation for my community. So, working together, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And turning to A17, Mr. Allen.
Okay, item A17, this is a resolution, this is sponsored by Supervisor Adam, and this is a resolution recognizing Vicki Anderson as the Santa Barbara County Arts Commission 2017 Leadership in the Arts Award recipient. And if Vicki could come on up to the microphone, and we have representatives of the Arts Commission here. And I'll go ahead and read the resolution into the record. Whereas Vicki Anderson has been recognized by the Santa Barbara County Arts Commission as the 2017 Leadership in the Arts Award recipient for her significant impact on the arts and culture of Santa Barbara County. And whereas Vicki has provided decades of invaluable guidance and insight to the Lompoc community, serving as an officer and member of the Lompoc Valley Arts Council, which provides a monthly forum for representatives from local arts and culture organizations to collaborate on programming and share resources that benefit local residents, students, and cultural practitioners. And whereas Vicki has served as the founding member of the Lompoc Mural Society, which represents Santa Barbara County in the Global Mural Arts and Cultural Tourism Association, as well as the California Public Art and Mural Society. She's personally overseen the storage, maintenance, preservation, and promotion of murals, including the establishment of the Lompoc's Arts and Culture Weekend, which opened the world-renowned mural making program to the public. And whereas Vicki is known for vivid impressionistic paintings and tremendous canon of visual art, Ms. Anderson's vast portfolio includes the 12 by 48 foot Mission Vieja mural that depicts that commemorates Lompoc's lost mission. And whereas Vicki has been a tireless advocate for enhancing access to the arts for all residents of Santa Barbara County, including residents with disabilities, youth, and minorities. As an educator, Ms. Anderson has spearheaded efforts to establish summer music theater and exhibition opportunities for young artists that live and study in Santa Barbara, ensuring the preservation and future of Santa Barbara's unique cultural signature. And whereas Vicki Anderson contributes to art and culture throughout Santa Barbara County, including the San Ynez Valley Quick Draw Arts Festival, which is now in its 30th year. Now, therefore, it is hereby ordered and resolved that this Board of Supervisors honors Vicki Anderson upon receiving the County Arts Commission Leadership in the Arts Award and commends her for sharing her knowledge, talent, and passion for the fine arts with all of our communities. Passed and adopted today.
I'm Brenda French, 4th District Commissioner, Arts Commissioner. And I nominated Vicky for all the reasons you heard in the resolution. Mainly, my appreciation for her goes back many, many years. And she's the go-to person. If there's an arts organization or a group in the community that needs help, they go to Vicky. She's always there. If it's to speak before a planning commission, explaining the difference between graffiti art and tagging, she's there to do it, to help a young artist make his way. Just for everything, and for the murals. I mean, she's there organizing everything. But mainly it's because she's the go-to person and dependable. And we couldn't get along without her, I don't think. And any of you that have been to Lompoc and see all the murals, although she's not responsible for organizing all of them, she has been behind many of them, particularly the Mural in a Day features. And right from the very beginning, she saw it as a way to add to the community. And we have many businesses that add to the picture without going through the Mural Society or whatever. And so it's a very colorful place to be. And we welcome you to Lompoc anytime you want to come. And let me introduce Vicki Anderson. Okay.
I'd like to thank the supervisors and the County Arts Commission for this great award. It's kind of hard getting an award for something that's so close to my heart because I truly enjoy the arts and have been involved in them since high school, maybe. Lompoc is a great community, but so are all the other surrounding ones, and all the arts and all the communities in all the states and all the world, which we seem to be fighting a little bit now as to how much support we're going to get. But once again, I'd like to thank you, and this is kind of like right when I was thinking about slowing down. But like I said, it's close to my heart. I'd also like to give a special thanks to my husband, who's here today. He's kind of always let me do what I want. So that's one of the reasons I've been able to do what I do in Lompoc in the arts. Thank you very much.
And our final resolution for today, A18, Mr. Allen.
Chair Hartman, members of the board, item A18 is sponsored by Supervisor Lavignino. This is a resolution proclaiming May 19, 2017 as Honor a Hero, Hire a Veteran Day in Santa Barbara County, and I think Frank Campo's here. And I'll go ahead and read the resolution. Whereas the people of our community have great appreciation and admiration for the many local men and women who've served their country in the armed forces to protect and preserve the freedoms enjoyed by our community and by all Americans. And whereas in war, international conflicts, and peacekeeping missions, men and women have been wounded, taken as prisoner, and died in the line of duty. And whereas veterans possess a wide variety of valuable job qualifications and skills, including experience, maturity, leadership, and loyalty, that make them ideal candidates for employment. And whereas local veterans employment representatives, disabled veteran outreach program representatives, and other employment development department staff are committed to ensuring that veterans receive the services and programs to which they're entitled and to promoting employer interest in hiring veterans. Now, therefore, be hereby ordered and resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Santa Barbara does hereby proclaim May 19, 2017 as Honor a Hero, Hire a Veteran Day in Santa Barbara County, and urge all local employers, organized labor, veteran organizations, and other government leaders to support this worthy campaign to increase employment opportunities for the men and women who have faithfully served our nation in the military. Passed and adopted today.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. Getting old, my eyes are failing me, and I'm not quite as old as Supervisor Lavignino, so. I'm honored to be here today to accept this resolution on behalf of the Veterans team at the Employment Development Department. The Honor a Hero, Hire a Veteran Job Fair was an initiative started by Governor Schwarzenegger in 2009. Subsequently, Governor Brown has decided to continue with this project by ensuring that men and women that serve in our military have the necessary tools and assistance to help them transition to civilian life after leaving the military. This year's event will be on May 19th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial Building here in Santa Maria. The Honor Hero Hire Veteran Job Fair is the second such event in as many years held in Santa Barbara County. Last year, we had 65 employers, training providers, and community-based organizations at the event. Currently, we have at least 50 employers, CBOs, and training providers signed up. If you know of an employer that's looking to actively hire, have them contact myself or the nearest local employment development department. Although the event is targeted for veterans, it's open to the public. I also want to applaud the Board of Supervisors for their continued support for veterans activities here in the county. It's through the Hire a Hero, Honor a Veteran, Veteran Stand Down, and Veterans Treatment Courts that we are able to give yesterday's heroes a hand up and not a handout. Not only do veterans bring the personal attributes of dependability, reliability, integrity, responsibility, effective communication, flexibility, and leadership in the workforce, they also allow employers to qualify for certain tax incentives up to $9,600 for tax benefits. They also allow employers to qualify for on-the-job training as well as non-paid experience. Most Americans profess to truly love our veterans, especially during gatherings at Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And while their feelings are usually sincere, it is important to remember that veterans are defending us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The heroes that have been demonstrated time and again by veterans from the American Revolution to the global war on terrorism is sometimes unnoticed by those of us who enjoy the security that their sacrifice have provided. Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to ensure long separations from their families, miss the births of their children, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, bake in wild jungles, lose limbs, and far too often lose their lives. You can show your support for those great men and women by hiring a veteran in your workplace. Companies should understand that it's smart business to hire a veteran, and when members of the Guard and Reserve deploy, it's America's business to ensure that their civilian careers do not suffer. In closing, I ask that you, the next time you need to hire for your business, consider hiring a veteran. And I'll leave you with this thought from Abraham Lincoln: to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. Thank you.
Turning then to the rest of our administrative agenda, I have Supervisor Adam wanted to pull A4 and A8. Are there any other items that we want on the board? Do we have any public speaker slips for pulled items, Mr. Allen?
Chair Hartman, members of the board, we have no requests to speak on the admin agenda from the public. As we get started here today, though, I did want to note that we published an addendum to the agenda on Friday, and this was related to our closed session today. And this added an item regarding conference with labor negotiators, regarding employee organizations, unrepresented managers, and executives.
Thank you. Then would you read A4 into the record, please?
Chair Hartman, members of the board, item A4 is from Behavioral Wellness. It's to consider recommendations regarding a behavioral wellness fiscal year 17-18 Coast Valley Substance Abuse Treatment Center contract renewal.
Supervisor Adam?
If Dr. Gleghorn would come up, that'd be great. You know, I usually, in fact, almost always pull these things because I got a problem in some respect. And this one just for an attaboy. Add a doctor girl, I guess. I love the performance and outcome measures. I think this is just what I wanted to see, and they're great, and they're honest, and there's nothing in here that's 100, 100, 100. It's just, this is the kind of work that we need to see so we can tell whether or not we're getting anywhere. And I thank you very much.
Thank you.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
And then.
Don't get used to it.
A8, Mr. Allen.
Chair Hartman, members of the board, item A8 is from Planning and Development. This is to consider recommendations regarding exempting one administrative professional from the civil service system.
Okay.
Go ahead, Supervisor Adam.
Maybe somebody can explain to me why these qualities, I just want to read these qualities here. Highest standards of confidentiality, professionalism, institutional savvy, technical acumen, trustworthiness, individual commitment, and compatibility with the department's directors and other executives. Aren't all our employees similarly endowed? Maybe,
Madam
could somebody,
Chair.
yeah, maybe somebody could explain to me why this one's special.
Madam Chair, we have a speaker from the department in Santa Barbara.
Thank you, Supervisor Wolf. Please go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Peter Cantle with Planning and Development, and Dr. Russell and Ms. Black could not be here today. I appreciate Supervisor Adams' concern. I think the key here is that confidentiality is critical. Certainly the other attributes that are listed there also critical, but confidentiality with regard to employee performance and other elements of personnel decisions that are made, certainly key aspects of this job. And I think that goes along with the need to have this person as an at-will employee serving at the pleasure of the director and the assistant director.
Well, just speaking for myself maybe and perhaps other supervisors, that being said, we'd all like to have all of our employees be at that level because we deal with some pretty sensitive stuff in our offices from time to time. I'm sure the CEO would like to have people at will all the time because she's dealing with some pretty sensitive stuff. Clerk of the board's office, you could go down the line, and I think it could be said of any department head, and maybe that's what we need to do is have all of the executive, administrative professional classification be at will. I don't know, but I'm not going to be able to support this because I don't see how this is different really fundamentally from many other department heads and indeed the supervisors' offices themselves.
CEO Miyasada, would you care to comment?
Supervisor Adam and board members, we have Andreas Piper, Assistant Director from HR, and he can respond to that. But I just would want to say that many of our executive positions in your offices and my office are at will, but on the secretarial, the assistant, the AOP type of class, I'll let Mr. Piper respond to that.
Good morning, Supervisor Adam, through the chair. Yes, all administrative professionals, they used to be known as executive assistants prior to the administrative office professional reclassification in the early 2000s. And all of them except this one are currently at will. So the administrative professionals who do support all the department heads, this is one of them that we are just bringing in line with the other. And then all staff within the supervisorial offices are at will employees currently. It actually, within section 27 of the code, it actually lists, and it does list staff within the supervisor's offices are at will at the moment.
Okay, so it's not just the, see, I was given to understand that it was only the chiefs of staff who are at will. Everybody in the office?
Yes, everybody in your office is at will.
All right, and so this is a patch to bring P&D up with everybody else?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I will change my vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I think that does it for all the pulled items. So may I have a motion to approve the balance of the administrative agenda?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote. Mr. Allen?
Mr. Adam? Aye. Mr. Lavanino? Aye. Mr. Williams? Aye. Ms. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Now is the time for public comment on any items that are not on today's agenda. So do we have any speaker slips, Mr. Allen?
Chair Hartman, members of the board, we have two requests this morning. We're going to start with Mary Bianchi to be followed by Bruce Corsaw.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. I'm Mary Bianchi, County Director and Horticulture Advisor with the University of California Cooperative Extension for Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. It's been with great pride that I have delivered these quarterly report summaries about the accomplishments of our advisors and staff. With my upcoming retirement in June, Future reports will be delivered to you by Dr. Catherine Soul, who has been appointed Director of Cooperative Extension Programs in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties, beginning July 1. But briefly, I'm here today with an update of activities during the first quarter of this year. And from January 1st to March 31st, our programs reached 2,325 adults and 4,223 youth through face-to-face contacts. And our web-based e-newsletters and blogs reached more than 40,000 readers. Our advisors are actively creating new knowledge with more than 20 research trials that will benefit Santa Barbara County agricultural producers. And of particular note, Dr. Mark Gaskell and Dr. Ben Faber are conducting research projects to investigate management of runoff water from agricultural tunnels for small berry production in both the Santa Maria Valley and in Ventura County that will benefit the current discussion of regulations concerning the use of hoop structures outside the coastal zone. We're continuing to facilitate a multidisciplinary, multi-agency rapid response to the presence of Kuroshio shot-hole borer disease complex in the Montecito area that threatens riparian agricultural and agricultural trees. And our Central Coast wine grapes planted on their own roots have supported some of the highest numbers of a plant parasitic nematode recorded in California, triggering the general use of resistant rootstocks. Our viticulture advisor, Mark Batney, is exploring poorly performing vineyards on these resistant rootstocks for all the factors that may be leading to their poor performance. We continue to provide expertise to inform decisions by the Ag Preserve Review Committee and the Agricultural Advisory Committee, as well as collaborating with your Santa Barbara County Planning and Building and Public Health Departments, the Nutrition Education and Obesity Prevention Programs, Santa Barbara County and City Fire and the Fire Safe Council, the City of Santa Maria Recreation and Parks, Santa Barbara County Food Bank, the Community Action Commission and Dignity Health Supported Nutrition Programs, the Central Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Coastal San Luis and Cachuma Resource Conservation Districts. We believe our programs provide solutions to local problems that result in valuable improvements in the lives of our youth and our adult communities, and we thank you for your continued support of our programs. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bruce Corsaw.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Bruce Corsaw with Local 620. I came to discuss behavioral wellness, the issues that we've been having, some of the concerns we have. I have been working for the local for 17 years. I have worked with many department heads. I've worked with many departments. Throughout those 17 years, we've had a lot of issues with ADMHS, behavioral wellness. In those 17 years, I've never seen it as worse as it is right now. Morale is at the all-time low. You have a unique group of people employed that cares for their clients. That's their main goal. That has switched. Now it's their main goal is to watch their back and just try and get along. Daily, I am getting phone calls. My staff is getting phone calls. Over the years, we have worked with the county on labor management collaboratives with every department. We've always been successful. This is the first time that we've actually brought the CEO's office in, as well as HR, and we failed at labor management collaborative with this department. Currently, we have a new policy coming your way. It's civil and respect in the workplace. I have shared this with our members. I currently have a list of 22 complaints ready for this policy to be approved so that we can file complaints in this department. We have some serious problems. During closed session today, you will be doing an evaluation. The purpose of any evaluation is to improve the employee's performance. I am hoping that this board will take the opportunity to actually conduct a 360 evaluation process utilizing peers, subordinates, and Local 620 in the evaluation. Our goal is to improve the conditions so our people can actually conduct their business and care for their clients at behavioral wellness. I believe a 360 is warranted. I believe attention by the CEO's office, more attention by the CEO's office is warranted. We have a serious problem. Let's try and fix it. Let's try and improve the situation. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, so I'll close the public portion of our agenda and come back to the departmental issues. And would you read the first one into the record, Mr. Allen?
Chair Hartman and members of the board, departmental item number 1 is from Public Works, and to the board as the Board of Directors of the Water Agency. It's a hearing to consider recommendations regarding the Cuyama Valley Groundwater Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency formation. This is in the 1st and 5th districts.
Mr. Fayram, are you making the presentation today, or is Mr. Young here?
We have
Oh, there he is.
Mr. Young
Okay.
coming in. And I think we have a number of members from the public as well. With them. Okay, there we are. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the boards. Public Works, the Water Agency, is back before you today for establishing the GSA for the Cuyama Basin. We've been working hard for several months on this. I might recognize that both Mr. Young and Ms. Crease have been working extremely hard on getting to this point with, obviously, with the staff of many of your offices as well. And with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Young for a presentation, and then we'll be available for questions after that.
Good morning. This item is on the agenda to request board approval to form a Groundwater Sustainability Agency, or GSA, in the Cuyama Valley Groundwater Basin. Over the past year, the Water Agency has collaborated with the other agencies that overlie the basin to form a GSA. These include the counties of San Luis Obispo, Kern, and Ventura, the Cuyama Community Services District, and the recently formed Cuyama Basin Water District. The Cuyama Basin Water District is a new agency formed by the majority of agricultural landowners in the basin to allow them to participate as a voting member of the GSA. Extensive negotiations over numerous working group meetings and significant public outreach have led to the development of a Joint Powers Agreement, or JPA, that we believe is acceptable to all parties. The JPA outlines the composition and voting structure of the GSA Board of Directors, which has been the subject of the most intensive negotiation. Representatives of all parties have been able to agree on a compromise weighted voting structure that would allow the Cuyama Basin Water District to seat all 5 of its board members on the GSA board while preventing its voting power from dominating the GSA. As shown on this table, the GSA Board of Directors will have a total of 11 members with a weighted voting structure. The Cuyama Basin Water District would appoint 5 directors who would split 33% of the total votes. The Water Agency would appoint 2 directors, splitting 22% of the votes. The remaining agencies would each appoint 1 director with 11% of the total vote. In the interest of maintaining a broad consensus among the agencies, the JPA specifies that a 75% weighted vote is required for all major decisions. This compromise voting structure is supported by staff of all participating entities and has been agreed upon in principle by the Cuyama Basin Water District Board. If your board does not approve this JPA, it is unlikely that a new agreement could be negotiated by the state's June 30th deadline. After June 30th, the State Water Resources Control Board would designate the basin as probationary and impose fee and reporting requirements on pumpers in the basin until a new GSA could be formed. The JPA allows the Water Agency to appoint 2 directors and 2 alternates, but specifies that they be either an elected official or management staff. The basin overlies the 1st and 5th supervisorial districts. Based on discussions with supervisors and staff from these districts, staff recommends that 1st District Supervisor Doss Williams serve as one of the Water Agency's appointees, with his Chief of Staff Darcel Elliott as his alternate. For the second appointment, there's a slight deviation from the staff report in this slide. We recommend that 5th District Chief of Staff Corey Bantalan be appointed as the second director, with Supervisor Lavanino as his alternate. In summary, staff recommends that your board approve the JPA and resolution to form a groundwater sustainability agency in the Cuyama Valley Groundwater Basin, that you appoint by resolution Supervisor Doss Williams as a director of the GSA, with Chief of Staff Darcel Elliott as alternate, that you appoint by resolution 5th District Chief of Staff Corey Bantalan as director, with Supervisor Lavanino as his alternate, and that you determine that these proposed actions are not a project under CEQA. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Do any supervisors have questions?
Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Please go ahead, Supervisor Wolf.
Thank you. I have a question. Well, first of all, thank you to everyone who worked on this. It seems that everyone is in agreement, and that's obviously a good thing. The question I have has to do with Article 8, the Advisory Committee in the JPA, and it says that the Standing Advisory Committee is hereby established as a group of representatives who advise the GSA and shall be appointed by the board. Was there any discussion during your meetings about how that advisory committee would be developed, the number of people who they would be representing? I'm not sure in Santa Maria who can answer that, but the JPA just seems very, non-committal about this standing committee or this advisory committee that does seem to have a strong role.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Wolf, we had extensive discussions about the advisory committee, both among the working group and in separate public meetings with interested members of the public in the Cuyama Basin. We discussed having broad geographic representation for various areas within the basin, as well as representation for different land use types, different types of agriculture, residence, rural residential. So it's in the interest of all parties who are signing the JPA to have the broadest possible representation, because it's something that DWR specifically requires for all GSAs. The GSA board itself will make the determination of how large that advisory committee is and what the specific representation is. However, we have extensive documentation from those 3 advisory committee formation meetings that will guide their decision-making process.
Okay, thank you for that.
Seeing no other lights up here, I had a couple of questions. The first is, once this action is taken by today's board, does this come back to the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors, or is the JPA that governs the GSA in the hands of that board entirely?
Madam Chair, the JPA would control the GSA, so it would not come back to your board unless requested for staff to come back for updates. So your board's 2 appointees would be able to vote independently.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
Chair Hartman, members of the board, we have 8 requests to speak. We're going to start this morning in Santa Barbara with Lisa Valencia Charat, to be followed by Lynn Carlisle.
Good morning, Chair Hartman, Board of Supervisors. I'm Lisa Valencia Sherritt, here officially today as Cuyama Valley Family Resource Center Co-Executive Director, and unofficially as former 1st District Office Liaison, Cuyama Valley, for former Supervisor Carbajal. Either way, I'm here to officially thank you, the board and staff, specifically our staff, Matt, Ray, Tom, and also Jane from DUDEC, for years of efforts, resources, collaborations, and patience to get us where we are today. From the USPS study years ago to community forums, meetings, negotiations, which culminate today. So I and we especially appreciate your willingness to work directly with the community and help make this very complex groundwater legislation as clear as possible. So our only request, which thank you, Supervisor Wolf, for asking, is that an advisory committee is established as soon as possible. And thank you, Matt, for clarifying that the work group notes will be used to guide that. So we, from both the FRC, who represent the low-income community, and the former 1st District Office, feel and felt that a strong advisory committee that does represent diverse interests of the big geographic and economically diverse valley, that those interests are heard. So just thank you very much. It's been a long process, and it's an honor to be here today on the other side. Thank you.
Lynn Carlisle, and then we're going to come back to Santa Maria for Ann Muir.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors.
My name is Lynn Carlisle, and I'm the co-executive director of the Cuyama Valley Family Resource Center. We serve hundreds of primarily low-income children and families throughout the Cuyama Valley. I'm here today first to thank the board and the staff for the hard work that has gone into the formation of the proposed Cuyama Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I believe the community appreciates the effort and energy that has gone into this process, and every effort has been made to make this new agency as representative of the community as possible in compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management. Secondly, I'd like to voice my support for the voting structure that is outlined in the Joint Powers Agreement. It appears to be the best available compromise. We hope that it will effectively serve the shared purpose of creating a fair and actionable groundwater sustainability plan that will bring this critically overdrafted Cuyama Basin into balance and ensure a healthy water supply for all stakeholders in the community, including the children and families served by the Family Resource Center. Third, I'd like to express my support for the appointment of Supervisor Williams as a director of the GSA and with his chief of staff, Darcel Elliott, as alternate, and the recent change to appoint the chief of staff, Corey Bantalan, and Supervisor Lavanino as alternate. I believe that having our local elected officials serving on the GSA will help to ensure that constituents are fairly represented on this budget. It's essential that the GSA be a strong and well-established agency from the very beginning, as it will be tasked with the important work of restoring an aquifer that is one of the most critically overdrafted basins in the entire state. Finally, I would ask the board to urge the GSA, once formed, to establish an advisory committee as soon as possible. This committee is stipulated in the JPA, and the community is ready to serve on such a committee. The county's been very helpful over the past 2 years to work with the Cuyama Valley Community Association to conduct multiple town hall meetings to educate the community about stigma and the formation of the GSA and the creation of a GSP. It is now an informed and activated community that is ready to provide input and local knowledge to the GSA and the GSP.
Back to Santa Maria for Ann Meyer, and Roberta Jaffe to follow.
Hi. Good morning, supervisors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am here representing my family, who has been in the Cuyama Valley for quite a long time, but not many people in the Cuyama Valley have been there for countless generations, prehistorical people, really. We support the formation of this JPA as the best available method for meeting the requirements of SGMA. And I was personally heartened to see that all 5 members of the Water Board are going to be able to serve on the JPA, because I think they represent varying interests. Some moderate-sized fruit orchard, our families in cattle ranching, there's some vegetable growers, and I think all of them bring a lot of expertise to staff. And then to reiterate what your first 2 speakers have mentioned, I would like to see the advisory board to the JPA GSA is mandated by the state. It's not an alternative, but I would really like to see widespread representation, not just into the USGA study area, but there's that whole other portion of the basin that needs to be managed. And so I think you need residents in the valley representing smaller properties, just residents, and then the west in Cottonwood area. So that would be my recommendation, that those people are strongly considered. And I think, having been at all 3 advisory meetings talking about this issue, that there's wide support for that in the local area. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Roberta Jaffe, be followed by Steve Gleisman.
Good morning, Madam Chair and supervisors. I want to thank you and thank the staff for the important time and energy you've put into the Cuyama Valley, and especially the situation currently there, and the opportunity to actually develop a sustainable water plan for the Cuyama Valley. I'm a resident and farmer in the west end of the valley in Cottonwood Canyon. And while other geographical areas of the Cuyama Valley have other seats on the GSA, the west end of the valley will only be represented by the by the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors. So you're our very important link to the decisions and the plans that will happen. I especially thank the two supervisors representing the valley for their willingness to step up and to be present as these decisions are made. We're very concerned on the west end about the land use changes currently taking place there. And they need to be considered in an important part of the GSP that's developed. We have thousands of acres of what historically has been dry rangeland being transformed into highly intensive irrigated vineyards, and in land that has been the common knowledge for years is that there's not the water there to sustain this. This is going to have a tremendous impact on many of us on the west end, and since there aren't a lot of studies out there of water and monitoring of wells, that we really don't know what the long-term impact's going to be on the whole valley. So these changes are happening now. They've happened since SGMA's passed. They'll happen before a GSP is in place. So it's something that the board, I think, not only needs to pay attention to in terms of the GSP, but I also would really like to encourage you to be aware of what's going on right now and the different permit applications that are into the different county departments. I also want to reiterate what people have mentioned already about the advisory committee. We think it's really, really important. We also think it's important that it's made up of the different geographic locations of the Cuyama Valley, because there's so many diverse interests there, and that it mainly be made up of the residents, so the residents truly have a voice in the planning that's going forward. There are families that have been in the Cuyama Valley for 100 years, and their voices need to be heard and their knowledge considered as we move forward with this plan. I think that's my main points, and again, thank you. We look forward as residents working with the GSA as we develop the plan. Thank you very much.
Steve Gleisman, to be followed by Randall Tognazzini.
Good morning, and thank you once again, Madam Chairman and the rest of the supervisors, and to all of the staff who've been working very hard on this project, and will continue to do so, I'm sure. I'm from a resident and farmer on the west end of the Cuyama Valley in the Cottonwood Canyon area, and many of the same observations and considerations that the previous speakers have put forward, I want to follow up on those as well. It's been a long process to develop where we're at now with the GSA, but it's really just a beginning, and especially with the land use changes that have taken place on the west end since this process began. You know, with the Harvard project now posing a potential impact. And the one thing I really want to recommend is that we continue to look at the integrity of the entire basin as a whole unit, as a whole watershed. And be really aware of the scientific evidence that exists for that integrity, the linkages between all parts of that valley, so that as we move forward in the development of a GSP, we really take into account that whole integrity, that whole interaction of the parts, especially what's now happening on the west end. And I also want to agree with what people said about the need for the development of an advisory committee that allows the voices that are not currently represented now on the GSA to be heard. Being from Santa Barbara County, I'm really going to be counting on our 2 supervisor districts for being that voice for us, but I think we can also add a lot through the advisory committee based in practical experience and long-term understanding and relationships of what it means to be members of that community in the Cuyama Valley. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Randall Tognazzini, to be followed by Pamela Baksick.
Good morning. Mr. Tognazzini, if you would, just a second. I've become aware that I may have a recusal issue here, so out of an abundance of caution, I am going to recuse myself from this item. So, thank you very much.
Good morning. I hate to have people recused just because I stand up. My name is Randall Tognazzini. I live in Rio Grande, California. I have a second home and acreage in Cottonwood Canyon, and the Tognazzini family is celebrating this year 100 years in Cottonwood Canyon. There is not much any of us in this room can do today to change what's before us. I will use my time to make a statement and pose a few questions. 3 legislative bills were put into law collectively to define the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA, in September of 14. You are here today to form and staff the GSA. The Cuyama Basin is not your only GSA within your jurisdiction. I find it interesting that our legislature and our governor found it important to form SGMA, but have not done anything to preserve water. We happen to be in a year where there is enough water, snow melt, that we could fill multiple dams and reservoirs throughout California that could be released in a manner that would do wonders to replenish water basins that are in or perhaps in overdraft. I find SGMA and its trickle-down theory and establishment for more regulation of vehicle to tax our well water usage. It ultimately will make a determination on how many carrots or grapes or other crops one can plant. It does nothing to capture available water that falls from the sky. USGS has done considerable work on water and water basins. Who will take precedent, USGS or SGMA? Who has done the most research? How are 6 GSAs for just the Cuyama Basin alone that are developing a GSP going to coordinate and agree to a logical GSP that somewhat matches USGS? What input will the advisory committee members have that will end up in the GSP? What expertise will the members of the GSA and the advisory committee members have that will truly impact decisions made in this and other basins? I am an advocate for realistic agriculture. I'm for water conservation and a strong advocate for water quality. This is my definition of sustainable and available water and usable water. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Gazzoni, did you have something you wanted to say?
Chair Hartman and Supervisors, I just wanted to clarify that Supervisor Adams' departure from the room, and he'd asked me to clarify that his recusal issue is wanting to have the opportunity to examine whether he or his family have any property interest that would be impacted by this. So just through an abundance of caution, he's stepped out and recused from this matter. That doesn't mean that after an analysis, he might not have an opportunity to vote on things downstream in a future meeting.
Pamela Baksick, to be followed by Jean Zanin.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, board members and staff, for all your hard work on the GSA and the JPA, writing the JPA. I'd just like to request that you do approve the voting structure as agreed upon by the Formation Committee. I would also thank Supervisor Williams for his request to be appointed and designating his staff member, Darcel Elliott. And thank you for the 5th District for designating their alternate. I would also request that you form the advisory committee as soon as possible and it be representative of all the residents in the Cuyama Valley. Thank you.
Jean Zanin, to be followed by Derek Urosic, who's our final speaker.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Gene Zanin. Our family has owned property in the basins from the early 80s and have been growing pistachios there since 1991. I'm here to support the JPA. I think given the circumstances, the two supervisors that are going to be representing in the voting structure did a magnificent job. And I also think the staff has done a great job given the circumstances. Something came out in the meeting that we had last Monday regarding the status of the advisory committee and how that might work. On one hand, a prominent member of the community, New Cuyama, voiced concern that the voting structure only allowed one vote for somebody that actually lived in the valley. That was of a concern, and quite frankly, I'm satisfied that between the advisory committee and the supermajority voting structure that I don't personally have a problem with that. The other comment was from one of the recent growers, in fact, the most recent industrial grower that moved into the valley, who came from Arizona, had a lot of experience in terms of water issues, and really was surprised and disappointed that the growers did not have more than 50% majority in terms of the voting structure. So we have that dichotomy. I think where the problem arises is a general mistrust of the things that have happened in the past relative to the development of agriculture in the valley, all the way going back recent years when the major growers took their wells out of the study itself, presumably with the hope that there wouldn't be enough data to really verify and validate the study. We also see new above-ground pipelines going up. We see a lot of new, what was in the past grazing land being converted into what I suspect is going to be irrigated land. We see, as had been previously stated, huge reservoirs going in. I think we're up to like 150 million gallons of storage in the last couple of years. So among all those things, I think there's genuine concern with the community that this is not going to be something that is gamed, that there's going to be a genuine effort on everybody's part to make this work, and that's going to mean cutting back on water. And that's going to have implications financially, but it's going to have a more dire implications in terms of the community itself if we run out of water. Thank you so much.
Derek Urosic.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Derek Urosic. I represent Bolthouse Properties, and I am the president of the Cuyama Basin Water District. We first want to thank all the county staff for their efforts and time that they put into this process and to getting us to this point today. We want to express our support of the JPA as agreed upon in our efforts to work through the process of creating the GSP going forward. Part of the discussion and a lot of the conversations took place around the fact of the number of votes and the percentage of those votes. We as a district, and as been expressed by others, are very strongly believe in the value of the 5 representatives to the board coming from the Cuyama Basin Water District. The purpose of that is shows a good diversity of both landowners, small and big, diverse in the regions that they come from within an 88,000 acre water district, and then as well as it shows the different permanent crop grazing and a row crop growing. So we want to express that support. We thank you for working through that, staff. And finally, we want to comment that's been reiterated. We do support the advisory committee. We would like to see that active as soon as possible. We'll work through that. We believe that that should be a diverse group representing the entire valley, and are looking forward to make that happen. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Peace is broken out in the Middle East. No, just in the Kiama Valley, but that's also quite an accomplishment. I have heard obviously the unease in everyone's voice. This is a matter that could have come to the board as a titanic battle between the desires of residents to have a more progressive one person, one vote structure, and landowners to have a more stakeholder-based voting structure. I would not normally support a voting structure that is regressive in this manner, but it is a compromise between those two interests and those two needs, and I support that compromise. It was hard to get there, right? But I think that what I'm hoping from our participation is that we are seeing a sort of resurgence in interest about from both large landowners and residents in groundwater sustainability. And I think the real logic or value of the law is just that it forces us to look in a 20-year time span and say and present a plan that shows sustainability over that time. And to the one speaker, Mr. Tognazzini, there is some opportunities for creation of water, quote unquote, in terms of what the plan has and what the water district does in terms of spreading basins or other ways to percolate more water into the groundwater basin. I mean, there is ways through this process for us to protect our water supplies. The other note I wanted to make is just for the residents that live outside the CSD, including those at the West End, Cottonwood Canyon. Roberta is right, is that we're their only direct representation, and so we feel like there is an importance to deal with all the issues that are being identified out there, and in my view, part of that is we really have to look at understanding if the county has really the right process for wells. It's kind of interesting that we're talking about the crisis right now, but you couldn't tell from our process of how we approve wells, right? You couldn't tell that we're in a crisis because we don't even ask for criteria or metering at this point, and those I think are an important loose end in this whole process. But I do think it's pretty amazing that after all the contentiousness, all the meetings that we came together, we figured out something that could work to balance those interests, and hopefully that means we can work together to have a really good, solid plan that protects both the economy and the water supply of the Kiama Valley. And that is my hope, and that's what we're going to be working for.
Supervisor Lavanino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple questions for staff and then some comments. So one of the things that was brought up with some of the West End land use changes prior to creation of the GSP, what exactly are we doing as far as well monitoring now on the West End?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Lavanino. As you may know, we pursued a basin boundary modification with DWR to divide the basin basically between the West End and the main basin. That modification was rejected by DWR. So since that time, we've started to put together a monitoring network of roughly 30 monitoring wells working with local landowners to get access to their wells. And so we're starting to put together a better picture of how groundwater flows in that portion of the basin.
Are we also looking at quality, or is it mostly quantity at this point? And will quantity reflect quality?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Lavanino, typically quality will decline as groundwater declines. However, that is not always the case. We are currently just monitoring groundwater levels at this point. However, there are opportunities to add some of these wells into our ongoing county-wide groundwater monitoring system, which does include quality for a certain number of wells.
Okay. So I got a question about like when we're getting updates on the overview of the basin and those things. Will they still come to this board, or will this now almost all be handled through our newly created GSA?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Lavanino, this will be handled by the newly created GSA. That's the JPA structure creates essentially a new agency. However, staff is happy to return with updates as requested by your board.
Okay. All right. So just my comments on this. First off, I want to thank staff here. I think you've been
Heroic.
almost overly responsive to the community, and I also want to appreciate Supervisor Williams for taking a lead in this as well. I took a little bit different approach. I looked at this as the community. What I didn't want to see, and what didn't happen, thankfully, was a top-down approach of where we come in and say this is the way it's going to be, because I don't think anything like that would have worked too well. So I think what ended up happening is a compromise that allowed for everybody to, I guess one of the signs of a good compromise is not everybody's completely happy with the situation, but everybody feels like it might be the best thing that we could have achieved. So I think we were successful there. I do want to stress that there is also a lot of work still ahead. A 75% voting hurdle is very difficult to achieve. And you're trying to figure out, I'm looking at these numbers, trying to figure out how that's going to happen. But you know what? I never thought we would, and if this deadline didn't exist, we probably would have never thought, hey, there's some way we're going to be able to form a GSA and have everybody agree on it either. So there is hope. I just want to let the folks on the West End also know that, I realize what our role is here is that we basically are your voice, and also that I will also be looking to see that advisory council crop up as quick as we can put it together, and that it will have, I think when one person said that it needs experts on it, sometimes experts are mostly the people that have the local knowledge. And so, I obviously know very little about that area, but I'm sure the people that have been farming there and working there and living there for decades, and some of you more than decades, will be coming to you for a lot of that knowledge. So very surprised when this thing first started. I did not think that there would be a meeting like this. I figured there'd be a lot of pitchforks and torches out there. So this worked out pretty well, and it's a testament to the community as well as the staff professionalism that got us to this point.
Supervisor Wolf, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, Madam Chair. I was just happy to hear the response about the advisory committee, and I trust, as speakers had mentioned, that this will be something that will be developed in one of the early meetings. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to add my appreciation to everybody in the community who worked so hard, and to Supervisor Williams and his staff, who I know also invested a great deal here. I am very interested. I have great confidence in the 5th and 1st District delegates to the JPA to make decisions on behalf of the community, but I'm interested in having a comparative look at the different GSAs and how they function in advisory committees. So at some appropriate time, 9, 10 months down the road, if you could report back to us on what's happening, so that we get a sense of the breadth of how different parts of our county are addressing groundwater sustainability. That would be much appreciated. And so I think we're ready for a motion as amended with Supervisor Lavanino as the delegate.
So moved. The staff recommendation with the amendment of Steve Lavanino as the alternate in the fifth district.
I'll second that.
And a roll call vote, please.
The record will reflect that Supervisor Adam recused himself and did not participate. Mr. Lavanino?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye. Thank you. And I think we'll just keep going for item number 2 on our agenda.
Chair Hartman and members of the board. Item 2 is from Public Works and to the board as the Board of Directors of the Water Agency. It's a hearing to consider recommendations regarding the Santa Maria Groundwater Basin Fringe Groundwater Sustainability Agency formation, 3rd, 4th, and 5th districts, and we're going to go.
We'll
bring
pause
Supervisor
just a
Adam back
moment
into
while
the
we
room.
get Supervisor. And Supervisor Wolf, did you have anything you wanted to say? I saw you. Perhaps you might.
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, just checking in. It's a little harder when we're not all in the same place.
Yes, I appreciate that, thank you.
Well, I'm just going to make an announcement that I'm going to recuse myself for lack of knowledge of where the actual boundaries are and whether I have properties that are covered by the fringe area. So I'm just going to recuse myself out of an abundance of caution in this one as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. And Mr. Fayram.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, again, for the Santa Maria Fringe, we will also have Mr. Young give a presentation on the GSA formation for Santa Maria Fringe.
All right, this item is on the agenda to request board approval to form a GSA in a portion of the Santa Maria groundwater basin. The majority of water users in the basin have undergone the lengthy legal process of adjudication of their groundwater rights and are therefore not subject to most of the requirements of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA. However, the boundary of the adjudication does not completely match with the basin boundary as defined in the California Department of Water Resources Bulletin 118, leaving fringe areas which are not managed pursuant to the adjudication. In Santa Barbara County, most of these fringe areas are along the Cuyama River below Twitchell, along Tepesquay Creek, and along a reach of the Sisquoc River. There is also a narrow fringe along the southern and western edges of the adjudicated basin. Larger fringe areas are located in the County of San Luis Obispo, and we anticipate that the County of San Luis Obispo and the City of Arroyo Grande will form GSAs in these areas over the next month. The intent is in filing as a GSA with DWR would be to avoid state intervention in these areas. If no GSA covers the fringe areas by June 30th, groundwater users would be subject to the state's onerous fees and reporting requirements, included as Attachment B to your board agenda letter. As a sole entity forming a GSA, your board would act as the GSA board. Staff would bring recommendations and requests for policy guidance to the board as needed. The fringe areas represent a small portion of overall basin water use, and it is unclear what meaningful management preparation of a groundwater sustainability plan would accomplish in these areas. Staff intends to work with the County of San Luis Obispo and landowners in these areas to better understand how these areas affect the adjudicated basin. We would work with these stakeholders to explore options for these areas with DWR and the state board, and this may deviate from a standard GSP. Because some of these areas appear to be inappropriately included in Bulletin 118, we would also explore a basin boundary modification in 2018, primarily along the southern and western boundaries. In summary, staff recommends that the Water Agency Board approve the resolution to form a GSA in the Santa Maria Groundwater Basin non-adjudicated fringe and determine that the proposed action is not a project pursuant to CEQA. Thanks, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Do we have any board questions? Mr. Young, did DWR suggest that this is a good way forward?
Madam Chair, DWR and the State Board are very clear that every portion of a basin that they have designated to be medium or high priority must be covered by a GSA or by a judgment. In this case, the judgment does not cover the whole basin, and so they have made it clear. And in fact, the State Board wrote a letter to your board last week indicating that these areas do in fact need to be covered. And so DWR has not given guidance on what to do with these fringe areas. We're not the only basin with them. They exist throughout the state, primarily in Southern California. And so we'll be working with other counties that are dealing with this and talking to DWR about specifically what they want in these areas. Because again, it is unclear.
And San Luis Obispo, they are forming their own GSA for the other part, and there's no advantage in doing it together, I suppose.
Madam Chair, we did have discussions to that end, but their areas are more substantial, and in addition, their county has voted to provide substantial financial assistance to these GSAs, and so their intended level of effort and need to manage their areas exceeds ours in our much smaller areas, and so we found an advantage to form separate GSAs with the option to do a coordinating agreement to form a single GSP if needed.
And Supervisor Lavanino, I
Thank you,
would have
Madam
let
Chair.
you go first if
Oh,
I'd
no.
seen the lights.
I just had one question. So why were these small pieces of property left out of the original adjudication, or do we know?
Supervisor Lavignino, I am not party to all of the extensive legal actions over 15 plus years, but my understanding is that the agreement was a stipulated agreement, and so some of these landowners may not have stipulated to the agreement. And in addition, there are some boundary decisions that are geologic judgment calls, and so there are some areas where the hydrogeologist mapping the adjudicated basin may have chosen to end their basin at a fault, whereas DWR, who is simply mapping alluvium, may have not particularly looked at that or seen that and just mapped the alluvium up these river valleys.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no more lights, do we have any public speaker slips?
Chair Hartman, members of the board, we have 3 requests. We're going to start with Chip Wolbrandt, to be followed by Andy Caldwell, and then Ken Huff.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Chip Wolbrandt. We fairly recently discovered that our clients' properties are within this fringe area. We thought that as a result of the very detailed Santa Maria Basin adjudication, this issue had been taken care of. And to answer Supervisor Lavignino's question, the answer is better science. There was very detailed science which mapped the boundaries of the basin, unfortunately, and if any of you know a perhaps former assembly member or future state senator, there may be some tweaks necessary for Sigma. This may be one, but I thank you all. I thank your staff for jumping on this issue and for doing what I expect will be sort of a placeholder to try and correct this with DWR. I ask you to have a Santa Barbara County only effort so that we can continue to work with your excellent county water agency staff and hopefully clear this up. Thank you.
Mr. Caldwell, to be followed by Ken Huff.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Andy Caldwell representing CoLab. I want to kind of speak to the elephant in the room, or maybe the elephant that's missing from the room. I don't know of anybody other than Supervisor Adam that knows more about this whole process, and yet he himself doesn't know if he's in the fringe area or not. We've got major landowners that didn't know there was a fringe area. And to Supervisor Lavignino's, we can't get really great answers as to why there's a fringe area. I mean, we have landowners that had to pay into the legal fight on the adjudication, and they paid one way, and now they're in the fringe area, so they got it coming and going. And we think that one of the first things that needs to be done immediately is landowners need to be notified that they're in the fringe area. That way, maybe Supervisor Adam, who knows more about this than anybody, could still be on the dais, or maybe he won't be on the dais. But how is it that we don't know? And you know, the issue here is some of these areas don't even have any water. And so we think that, you know, at most, we do support the county doing what they're doing today. But some of these landowners may have wanted to do what Cuyama did. They may have wanted to form their own district, but they didn't know they were in the fringe area. And I think that it'd be really good if the county water agency or somebody could do a map and send out a notice to the people, that the owners of those parcels, so that they would know. And of course, this would only apply to Santa Barbara County, but that they would at least know. And we do ask Supervisor Williams, you've got connections in Sacramento. This thing's a mess. It's a total mess. That of how it's crossing county lines, adjudication lines, fringe areas in between. The thing is, you can't manage something like this. And so we would hope that those fringe areas in Santa Barbara County, as you can see, there's barely no real estate between the adjudication and the county line. We'd like to get those adjusted, because we do believe they're in the same basin. And drawing from the same water, so they should be, we believe, grandfathered under the adjudication. And we'd hope the county would exert some leadership, so maybe to minimize the cost of staff dealing with this fringe, because it's not that big in our county, and we think it should have been part of the adjudicated basin, and they shouldn't have to be doing this. Thank you.
Ken Huff. Mr. Huff's our final speaker. Oh, wait, pardon me, we have a late slip from Jane Baxter.
Good morning, Chair Hartman and Supervisors. I'm Ken Huff, speaking on behalf of the Santa Barbara County Action Network. For 15 years, SBCAN has been working to help create sustainable communities. Andy just said he sees this as a mess. I see it as an opportunity. Let me explain. A big part of sustainability is to have good quantity and good quality of water to serve the needs of the vast farmland in our valley and the needs of 200,000 people who live in the region served by this groundwater basin. So today I'm here to support the staff recommendation to form a GSA for the non-adjudicated fringe, and I'd like you to consider some additional measures as well. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is intended, as the name clearly indicates, to ensure that underground aquifers remain sufficient in quantity and at least adequate in quality to meet our municipal and agricultural needs. Last year and the year before, SBCAN gave input at the public meetings regarding the annual report on the Santa Maria Valley Management Area, commonly referred to as the Scalmanini Report. We raised concerns about the long-term drop in the water level in our basin, but under the terms of the adjudication, drought is not allowed to be a consideration. If water users are taking more than they're allowed to take, and that's why the level is dropping, then something can be ordered to be done about it. But if the water level is dropping due to drought, then according to the stipulation, nothing can be done. That means that no single entity is providing overall solutions to the declining groundwater levels during times of drought. And that's a big gap in groundwater management. So as to the opportunity, we hope you'll take this opportunity to address that gap and create a plan for dealing with the entire Santa Maria groundwater basin along with the fringe area. We hope that the formation of a groundwater sustainability agency for the fringe and other measures you may take to address the entire basin will result in better management of all variables affecting groundwater. Decision makers need to consider the quantity and quality of the water in the entire basin and our water needs beyond the confines of the stipulation agreement. Accordingly, we would support the concept that was mentioned by staff of a coordinating agreement with SLO to create one GSP, one plan. The board letter states that it's unclear what can be accomplished by preparing a GSP for the fringe. So, since sustainability of the fringe is dependent on sustainability of the whole basin, we hope the preparation of the GSP will open a larger dialogue. Thank you very much.
Jane Baxter. We're going to make copies. Pardon me. We're going to make copies because we can't put that on the screen right now.
Okie doke. And what it is, it's the, not the water basin or the fringe. It's a map that shows the watershed for that groundwater basin, which touches 4 counties, includes 4 of the districts except for Santa Barbara, and that it makes you realize that 4 of the 5 districts are a participant in providing clean water for the groundwater basin. So, oh, here we go. The time's going. I'm sorry. I thought they were going to. I encourage you to accept the staff recommendation. I disagree with Ken on one thing. Usually we're fairly compatible thinkers, but I would like to see 2 separate GSAs developed, one for each county, and that would trigger the portion of the law that requires collaborative basin-wide planning, which is missing now because the 3 management districts seem to function as if they were managing separate aquifers, where in reality it's all one bathtub and numerous straws going down into it. They don't meet, they don't discuss basin-wide issues, and if we create 2 GSAs, one in San Luis, one there, that would trigger the law that would require a collaborative process for management of the basin. And that's the biggest thing the county can accomplish with this, would be to improve the basin-wide planning on this. I think it's absolutely crucial. And the fact that the vast majority of the basin will not have a sustainability plan, and this would allow at least some coordination and sustainability planning. And there are key reasons why the basin is in dire need of sustainability planning. One is the last annual report for the Santa Maria Management Area considers groundwater levels in chronic decline. The state has identified high nitrate levels as a significant water quality issue. The nitrates levels continue to rise. That's a real sustainability challenge. Current SMA management does not raise the issue of long-range sustainability planning to address anticipated climate change or sea level rise. This could be accomplished with the involvement of the county. And annual discussion of industry impacts in the annual report of the Santa Maria Valley Basin omits any mention of potential oil industry impacts. We have over 1,000 oil wells that have been drilled through our drinking water aquifer that are at risk of leaks or blowouts, and have and each year, with more wells being drilled, the ERA project will be drilled directly into the aquifer, that this is not considered part of sustainability planning. No study has been conducted of the resource sustainability after a major quake. We're 30 miles from the San Andreas Fault, even closer with the watershed of this
And that is your
groundwater basin.
time.
Okay. And we need to have a plan for earthquake preparedness as part of sustainability. So thank you for addressing this issue.
Thank you. Mr. Young, did you have any comments you'd like to make in response to what you heard from the public?
Madam Chair, Supervisors, just one comment that we did, pursuant to the requirements of DWR, we did notify and send mailers to all the landowners in the fringe area, and that's kind of an expansive definition of the fringe area, including parcels that were split by the adjudication boundary. And I think that's some of the source of confusion on what's in and what's out, is that the boundary defined by the adjudication splits in quite a few parcels. And so there is some confusion on what's in and what's out, based on a reading of the adjudication. We also held 2 public meetings in concert with San Luis Obispo County, at which were quite well attended by landowners, and we did contact interested parties in the basin prior to this hearing.
Supervisor Lavanino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the history of this basin is long and expensively has been millions and tens of millions of dollars have probably been spent adjudicating this basin. So I'm going to, if there's no other comments, I mean, I don't think you go back and reopen this entire basin because you've got 0.1% that's outside the boundary. 99.9% of this has already been adjudicated. So this is a slight boundary change. And on some of these areas I see probably out in the east, I don't think there's any water out there to start with. So there's a reason why there is the state's allowing us to, as long as you have an adjudicated basin, is to move forward. We have an adjudicated basin. Some of the boundary has to be moved. I trust our staff to be able to do that in a fair manner. So if nobody else has a comment, I will, or when you do, I will be ready to move this item with staff recommendation.
Supervisor Williams, I see you're thinking about it.
Well, if that's a motion, I'll just second.
That's a motion.
It seems like it is belt and suspenders to some folks, but at least that'll require us to put our heads together and figure out a worthy GSP. So I suppose that's looking at the bright side of more work, but I think it's what we got, and it's the best thing we got right now.
Okay. I do have a question about the relationship between Sigma and adjudicated basins. I'm sure there's no easy answer to that, but that'll be part of what you're exploring through this process once we make today's decision. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct. Sigma does exempt adjudicated basins from the majority of the requirements of Sigma. They do have some specific reporting requirements that they need to meet. And but again, the fringe areas are not intended by the legislation, at least by our reading, to open up the entire basin to management. The intent is simply to cover those areas that are not covered by the adjudication.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Wolf, just checking in.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Lavanino, you make the motion?
Motion's been made for staff recommendation.
And a second from Mr. Williams? Okay. Call the roll, please.
Supervisor Adams has recused himself. Mr. Lavanino?
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Ms. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Hartman?
Aye.
Passes 4 ayes with one recusal.
Okay, and that concludes our open agenda. Would you explain what we're doing in closed session, Mr. Gazzoni, and the change to the agenda?
Chair Hartman and Supervisors, today in closed session, the board is agendized to consider 5 items. 2 of them are existing litigation, Dominguez versus County of Santa Barbara, and Yorks versus County of Santa Barbara. You have a 3rd item, anticipated litigation, conference with legal counsel. You have 1 public employee performance evaluation for Department of Behavioral Wellness Director Alice Gleghorn. And as Clerk of the Board noted, Friday's addendum to the closed session agenda was to add conference with labor negotiators for unrepresented managers and executives. The county's designated representatives are CEO Miyasato and Human Resources Director Gentles. That is all.
Thank you. So we will adjourn to closed session and come back and report on the results of the closed session after we finish. Let's see. Is that it? Yeah. We're reconvening the May 9th meeting of the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors after a closed session. Mr. Gazzoni, would you report out, please?
Chair Hartman and Supervisors, the board today in closed session considered 5 separate items. 2 were workers' compensation cases. The first, Dominguez versus County of Santa Barbara. The second, Yorks versus County of Santa Barbara. There was 1 item of anticipated litigation, 1 public employee performance evaluation for Department of Behavioral Wellness Director Alice Gleghorn, and through Friday's addendum to the closed session agenda, conference with labor negotiators concerning unrepresented managers and executives. There are no reportable actions.
Thank you. We stand adjourned till next week in Santa Barbara.